Okay, we're back again here at allpointstv.com. I'm George Moss, the host of the program here called What's Going On, and we come together on Mondays, and we're here from 2 o'clock to 3. We're glad to see all the lights are up and running, and I'm glad to see all of the cameras operative at this point. And I want to thank all of the people that are feeding from the studio into their networks. I want to thank you for coming aboard and being a part of this exciting journey. We think it's exciting. You might not agree with us. We're trying to say some things nobody else is saying, and some of the things we're saying here, I can tell you right now, nobody's going to go along with because the claims I'm making, I know the scholars not going to go along with it because I'm making the claim. I'm going to stand on the claim I made last week, and I don't see any reason to change it. I said last week that I used to say that I was the only one that understood the impeachment process. But I have to tell you something. Now that I'm listening to these scholars, quote unquote, these scholars, these people of the professors of the law. Let's put it that way, professors of the law. I am more convinced now that I was in fact undermining my own skill sets. I think I'm better trained than they are. And I'm not going to shortchange that in terms of what I'm hearing what they say, and I'm going to challenge them on some things they're saying, and I want them to come in and challenge what I'm saying here on the network, because we understand. I'm finding out we all on the same network. All of us are, in fact, a part of Rumble, and I hear what they're saying. I go on their network and see what they're saying, and I'm going to challenge some of the comments they're making, and I'm going to challenge it based upon the document they claim that they understand and that they're quoting from, and I'm going to show them that they're not quoting from it, and they don't understand it. Because if they understood it, they would not be saying the things they're saying. I'm going to read the document to you, and I'm going to let you be the judge of which one of us is right. I can already tell you that I'm going to show you the document does not justify the claims they're making about it on a number of levels. And some of it is because they don't understand the nuances of the language. And that's another problem here, too. And that problem is a literacy problem that we have in this country. And that literacy problem we have is not only among the laymen, it's also among the scholars. The Constitution is a thematic document. And you have to understand how it is set up thematically in order to understand the document, because the document, one part of it, and this is what really surprises me and stuns me about it. It shows me who was in that room for I would say, now you got different dates on when the meeting would have started. Some say May the 25th. I would say started June the 25th, but that's because we are differently situated as far as how we see the real affairs of the convention taking place, because they've been sent there for specific reasons. And my dating would be a little bit different because I'm talking about when they really got down to what they were sent there for. You know, you have to be careful in these conventions, because once you get to the convention, whatever the particulars are when you send delegates there to do the bidding of the states, does not mean that they'll be true to where they were directed to go to, Philadelphia in this case here. And so I have a different date for it, because I see by reading the diary. I guess it was kind of like a diary that James Madison kept of the affairs of each day of the deliberations, and his showing us what was really discussed at that time. I just have a different way of looking at when the actual deliberations started as to what their charge was when they had been sent there. Now, all that stuff where you get off scale. People do what people do different things, and everybody have their own view of things. They get there, and some other things begin to kick in, and before you know it, you've been diverted from the reason why why you were sent there. So my dating would be a little bit different. I think June 25th is a better date, and I will take the convention from June 25th to September the 17th, 1787. And so that would be about 3 months. It's 8 days short of 3 months. Okay, now I know what they're saying too, and I don't discredit that. That is a view. I'm going to discredit what they're saying about what they came up with when they drafted the Constitution, because there's something different here. And I'm going to show that a lot of these scholars are making claims here, and that those claims cannot be sustained by the document. I've already shown, I think I showed last week, that the idea that impeachment requires a charge of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors in order to bring about impeachment, I've already shown that that is not borne out by the document. And I've also pointed out the confusion here is that what has been done here by Alan Dershowitz in this case, I think Lawrence Tribe also, these are two Harvard scholars. What I'm going to say, where they gotten confused here, and you're on Rumble, so I'm on Rumble, and so we'll see what happens here. I'm gonna defend what I say. I'm going to require you to defend what you say. What I've said here on the air, in front of God and everybody else in the whole world, is that the confusion here is that they brought into the impeachment process that which is in fact initiated in Article 1, and then it is completed in Article 2. What they've done here is they've taken what is the language in Article 2, and they've parroted back to Article 1, where the impeachment itself is discussed in the Constitution. Now, the other part of it in Article 2 is a further use of the impeachment process, is not to explain what the impeachment process pertains. For example, in Article 1, Section 5, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5. I can read it to you out of the document. I have the documents right here. In Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5, it says that the House shall choose its Speaker and shall have the sole power of impeachment. That therefore, in that language, this allows for Lawrence Tribe to say that the impeachment process has not been engaged until the matter is referred to the Senate. You cannot read Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5, and then conclude that impeachment has not been concluded until that which the impeachment was is referred to the Senate, where it goes to trial. And I said last week something nobody's ever said before, and I don't think anybody even knows in this country, and I don't think anybody's going to call me up. I'm on Rumble, all you scholars like you are, and now you're going to call me up and then say to me that I'm wrong in saying that the impeachment does not have to be referred to the Senate for trial. I'm going to show you that also. And then when you start talking about what universities everybody finished, and you have these, and I have and I have Wayne State, and you have those, and you want to start doing what they do in terms of how society sees it, they see it as if you came out of this school and that school, then you are going to be a person that is a candidate to sit on the Supreme Court. You know, it's very seldom you see somebody like Amy Barrett that's sitting in the Supreme Court, because she's from She's not from Harvard and not from Yale. She's from UCLA, I think. I think that's it. I know it's not one of the Ivy League schools, and so that's unusual because you look at all these jurists that have sat on the Supreme Court, and you can pretty much quantify it around 4 different institutions. The number one would be Harvard, and then you have Yale and Cornell, somewhat Princeton, and Columbia University. I don't think Brown too much. Brown is where Ocasio-Cortez comes out of, which is that's a statement right there about you. If you're getting a degree, if this woman gets a degree, as dumb as she is, then that raises a question. So basically, Harvard University, and that's what they do. They if you're speaking from Harvard University, as Lawrence Tribe was doing until he retired, now he's an emeritus scholar at Harvard University, and as Alan Dershowitz does, then they assume that whatever they say, given the status of the institution they spoke from, the loftiness of that institution, then what they're saying has been concretized by the document. And so they say things, and it's taken for the truth because you don't check behind them. If they say, for example, that you have to have treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors in order to bring about impeachment, then people are going to go along with that. I'm not going along with it because I know it's not constitutional. And I know too much about it, and I'm trained too well to let them get away with it. And they're not going to say anything because I don't think anybody in this country is qualified to come behind what I say. And I don't say that out in public too much because I don't want a person to think that I got such a chip on my shoulder that some have accused me of being very arrogant, and I don't think it's arrogant at all. What I'm trying to say here is that the document either says what I'm saying it says, or it doesn't. Either says what they say it says, or it doesn't. And now the test is to look at the document and see what it says. Is that fair? Is it fair to look at the document and let the document speak to which one of us saying different things is correct? Because 2 people saying opposite things cannot both be correct. And I'm saying that the idea of treason, bribery, and high crimes and misdemeanors being the standard for which impeachment can take place is not stated in Article 1, where the impeachment is laid out in Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5, and nobody can say that it requires that because it's not stated in that part of the document. Now, in Article 2, what's stated in that part of the document is when the trial comes up, if it gets to that point. And I'm going to tell you this, is that those persons, and that's throughout the history of the Constitution in the country, every time someone has been impeached, the matter has been referred to the Senate for trial. And the reason why that is true is because they do not understand that you can have impeachment without it going to trial. I'm the only one that said that. Nobody's ever said it before. And I'm absolutely basing it upon this document here. Both of these are the Constitution, just different versions of it, different writings of it, same document. Not different versions of the document, different versions of the placement of the document. shorter version. This comes out of Hillsdale College. Thank you, Hillsdale, for putting that out, because a lot of person can get it in this form and get through it without going through a lot of the things that go on in the footnote. So this is a footnoted copy. And so it has a little bit more to it. Many people just want to cut to the chase. But I'm telling you, in order to get the cut to the chase, you've got to be able to read the document very, very carefully, because a lot of it is nuanced. And because it's thematic, then you've got to understand the themes of the document, because it's laid out in a thematic form. What is really shocking, I think I said this earlier when we started today, what's really shocking is how because I'm going to say this, but the reason why I'm saying it, let me tell you why I'm saying it first. I've been on a lot of different committees, and we break up into different corridors to discuss an issue, and we come back together in the consortium. And because of that, there are a lot of disconnected points that got to be tied together, because you're meeting in this part of the room, they're meeting in another part of the room, and over here somebody's meeting, and then there's no congruency because you're not privy to the conversation going on over here, over there, or in the center. And when you come together, the themes are different, and you got to make some congruency out of it. What really is surprising and shocking and stunning in the document is how thematically consistent the document is and how congruent the document is. Congruency in terms of, let's say, about impeachment. Let's just talk about that for a minute. In Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5, it says the House of Representatives shall choose its speaker and shall have the sole power of impeachment. I'm going to read that to you so you won't think I'm making it up, but I don't have to make it up. I'm telling you what the Constitution says. But let's go back and read it. I'll read it out loud to you and see if we can, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5. Okay, so Section 2, and we're coming down to the 5th clause there. The House, I'm reading it from the document now. The House of Representatives shall choose their speaker and other officers and shall have the sole power of impeachment. It does not say here in Article 1, Section 2, that you must have treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. Now, why is that important? That's important because Article 1, Section 2 sets up the House of Representatives. And because it does that, and it does not place in there treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors, what that does is leaves it open. It doesn't specify what impeachment what impeachment is based on. There's no specificity in the impeachment. Let me tell you why. Listen carefully. Here's why. And you people in Washington, listen carefully, because because Houston, we got a problem here. It's because we have in this country due process of law. That's why. Just because you accuse somebody of something does not mean that's the final status. That is not the last word. It does have to be adjudicated if you, in fact, plan to take an action upon it. But what they're confused about, and there's been a confusion throughout the history of the Constitution in the country ever since 1788 when it was ratified, It's been a confusion throughout the history of the country, and no one has ever corrected that before. I'm doing it now. I have a doctorate degree from Wayne State University, but that's not all I have. I have a lot of time in the library, which is another classroom and another university. I use both of them. Every time we had a lecture, and my hand was always up in the air because I was not always agreeing with what they were saying in the classroom. But and that's been in every seminar I've been in. I've been in some seminars on different things. I was in a seminar in 1994 at Michigan State, and they had a lot of the scholars from around the world teaching a seminar from Africa and other parts of the world. And I was in the seminar with them, and I was there as a member of these are scholars from all over the country. Maybe not scholars in this case here. This was a National Endowment of the Humanities grant, and they had invited people from all over. You had to apply for it, and then they accepted you based upon what you wrote as why you thought you should be a part of this grant. And it was an NEH grant. I was one of the ones that was chosen to be a part of it. I think there were about 50 people or so in there. I could not say scholars. I'm not sure how they made the selection, but I do know that in that session, I was raising questions about the propriety of what was being said at Michigan State, which claims to be, and I think the claim is correct, claim to be the top university in terms of its having an African Studies department, probably the top university in the country that has that particular emphasis in its curriculum. I mean, there's a whole building over there for studies, African studies, and so on and so forth. But when I was in that seminar, and they were giving dates out about different things and that type of thing, I was in that seminar, and we were at a certain point. They were beginning to see who was in that room. I was in that room, and you can go and ask anyone that was in that room what was going on in that room, and also in the university. You can ask the scholars there too. I really don't think that the degrees really speak to my training. I think what speaks to my training more than that was reading, writing, and counting, which was really in elementary school. And that's what is really so egregious about what is happening right now in school. Because if you don't give the children the foundation, and that is the foundation, reading, being able to read well, being able to write well, and being able to count. That's it. If you can do those three things and you have a hunger for information, then learning cannot be denied, really.
I never did ask you that. Okay, so nowadays there's such an emphasis on getting funding for
Can you turn it up some, John?
Yeah, they got so much funding. They want so much funding from technologies, and they always want more technology funds. Okay. I mean, I was in the technology field at U of M. My department I worked for provided the technology to go into classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a serious problem developing from that. And, I just thought that people were ridiculous for wanting more and more of the professors, because I could foresee the bean counter saying, let's just have, videotapes or video, whatever the format would have been at that time, to teach the classes. and we don't have to pay them, and they can never miss a day. They're not going to miss a day and all this. And I saw that, but they're always emphasizing at the younger stages, kids got to have a laptop or an iPad or an iPhone or all this stuff. And I'm like, get the kids get on paper, write stuff out, learn how to read cursive, learn how to put their own numbers down, write numbers out. I think I see that's a reason why I think is they wanted people not to be able to read cursive and stuff because they don't want to look at the original documentation. They can put anything in there. It's going to be like a foreign language for people just to read English in cursive. So I just had issues with all this, technology, and that was my bread and butter. But I just had issues with it.
You have to have, and that's really why the educational system is set up on a graduation basis. I mean, one level, first grade. One thing I'll say, back when I was in school, starting in elementary school, what I noticed was that it was organized. When I went to high school, you went to the annex in ninth grade. Ninth grade was separated from the rest of the high school. They had 10, 11, and 12 down the road a piece. And so the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders were in that part of the Parker High School. Over here on the other campus, they had the ninth graders, and that's where they had what you call the annex. The instruction was also hierarchical. You had, in the ninth grade, you had where teachers that were like, they had the same degrees, but they seemed to have been on more of a ninth grade like level. I say that because I'm looking at what happened as I went to 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade, and certainly in 12th grade, the combination of that was people like Mr. Vaughn and the one that was the head of all of them, as far as I'm concerned, and that was Mrs. Reed in the English class. And it looked like that was the apex of all of the instruction that I received. But it was like they had organized it so that it was, in first grade, you had this teacher, and they were kind of like the mother types. Not so much the academician instructor, but you come in from home, you came out of kindergarten, you need to have kind of like a person's like your mom, local parentis, your parent away from your parent away, your way parent, the parent you had in school, but your parent away from home, and your teacher was like your parent, someone that was like a mother to you, away because you never been with your parents before. And so that was like in first grade. I remember her name, Mrs. Sampson. But it was organized so that every level was a higher level. And so I got training above the training I got in high school, but I think the foundation of all the training that I received would allow me to receive it and understand it and really go beyond it and dissect it, which is what I've done, was because of the basic foundation I received in the earlier grade levels. And that's why I think the travesty is right now with these children going to school, is that you don't have anyone that's actually getting the basics anymore. They're not teaching this nonsense. I'll tell you another reason why I say that no scholar is going to touch my scholarship in this country is because I listened to what was said this past weekend, not this weekend, last Tuesday. John, did you see that discussion going on between Josh Hawley and the professor from Berkeley?
Oh, this
woman is teaching law at Berkeley University. She's a law professor, and they were talking. I have it on my phone. I did an article on it today on Facebook. And I hope you'll read the article I did today on Facebook on that conversation between Josh Hawley and Kyra Bridges is her name.
Her eyes, she just looked like she wasn't all there. She was assailing him left and right on stuff that wasn't pertinent to the conversation. She was making accusations that she wasn't following through on, trying to prove. She was a very emotionally based. I mean, that's the problem.
Wow, John, I couldn't believe the things come out of that woman's mouth.
I mean, she just spewing this hate, bitterness and this hatred. And I guess, okay, there's a point in that. And I think there's a factor where that's why law is created, so you can address the human dimension of, a violation of human rights. But she was pulling off stuff that wasn't codified in law, in any law that I've ever seen. I mean,
That's
she's
a
a
law
lunatic.
professor?
Yeah, she's a lunatic.
This woman was talking about men. First of all, she stated that those that have a capacity for birthing. So Josh Hawley asks, are we talking about women here? And then as he began to ask her about clarification of what she's talking about, she then came out and that this, you just had to wait for this. It definitely was coming. And that was the name calling. And so she told him that the line of questioning was transphobic. So now he's scared of people who have a different orientation. That's that. In other words, we're no longer talking about whether men can give birth or not. We're now talking about this guy's transphobic mindset.
I mean, okay, they come up with this. How many years ago we started hearing about this transgender stuff with intensely, like, just what, 2 or 3 years ago? Now everybody's supposed to be on board. They changed the page. The laws don't reflect this at this point or anything. They want us to, like, it's all based upon emotionalism. That's all it is. It's
not based upon scholarship.
It's a scholarship or anything else. I mean, and she's making accusations against an individual. She's only word. I mean, if I were to do that from a person she was trying to be the champion of.
What does this woman know about the Constitution, John? This woman doesn't even know the difference between a man and a woman. And they were talking about can men can men get pregnant? Her view was trans men can get pregnant. But if they are trans men and they get pregnant, that just shows you that they're women. I can't believe we're having this discussion in 2022. We would not have had that discussion back there in 2022 BC. We would not have been talking about a man can get pregnant, and they're talking about this on the university level. And these are the scholars who are going to challenge what I'm saying. And these are the scholars today that's going to challenge what I'm saying. I've been on some of their networks, and I call them what they are. You affirmative action scholars.
I just don't understand. They have to qualify everything they say, because these people who are out going to this extreme about trans rights. Okay, without serious surgical implementation or surgical intervention, these people would not be able to they don't be able to receive sperm into them, so they don't have an egg to fertilize. So how can they possibly? It'd have to be through serious, I would say beyond ridiculously heroic surgical procedures to do this.
Insanity. And these persons got how many degrees they have, and they're talking this. She actually told Josh Hawley that he should come to her class because he learned a lot. What is he going to learn? If you don't know you're not going to learn anything about the law.
Her interpretation of existence, I guess. I mean, and I really, from what I heard, I just don't feel it compelling enough to actually want to take the effort to go to her classroom. I mean, serious for that.
My goodness. What are you teaching about the law if you can't get the basics right? The basics, we never even discussed this 10 years ago, or whether or not a man could get pregnant. Where did that come from? Where are these conversations coming from? Just because you got it at the university does not mean that they are the last word because of the status of the place where you're saying these things. The question is, how is that which is being taught tested? The data shows it all.
Well, it boils down to this. The extreme feminist, and I'll coach it this way:
Right.
extreme feminist see the menstrual cycles and menstruation has got MEN in it, so it's a contract or a social construct that men came up with. I mean, to me, it's like ridiculous because it's avoiding another language that actually we draw for our medical, terminology for some reason. Greek and Latin, we choose from those two. We draw from those two, so it actually comes from one of those. So now, but it's because it's got MEN attached to it. It's a social construct, and men it's not a biological thing. It's just a social construct that we can just arbitrarily cast aside.
Yeah,
It's just ridiculous.
Your biology is sociological now, that you can actually sociologically decide. I think that part of the problem too is this notion that as a man thinketh, so is he. But you have to understand something about that. As a man thinketh, so is he in his thinking. In his thinking, you can think that you're something, but does that make it so? That you think of that.
I can identify with being Bill Gates and Warren Buffett rolled in, but does it mean that people are going to accept my checks for large scale purchases? Is that where they're going to fall? I mean, how are you going to go with this?
Yeah.
There is a reality. My bank account's my reality. So I mean, even though I identify,
you made the same. That's the right word there. You said that word reality. That is that's the check right there. What is the reality? Ayn Rand made this point. She was very brilliant in making this point. Reality is an absolute. In other words, you cannot have your perceptions cancel out the reality. You can't say because I don't perceive. Let's say, okay, I don't perceive gravity. I mean, I can't feel it. I can't, there's no way in the world I've ever touched it. So then I don't perceive it, therefore I'm gonna jump out the window. And because you don't perceive it as having any viability, let's say it that way, and you don't think it's real because it's not perceived to be real, you're going to therefore act as if it's been suspended because perception has not discerned that it exists. Okay, go out there and do that. Don't do it, by the way, because the outcome is not going to be very good. But there are people that actually believe that reality can be negotiated. That is, say that like in the physiology of human beings, that's open to negotiation and to debate. We can debate whether a man can get pregnant or not. And you're being, what was the word she used? You're being transphobic if you deny that. She was actually saying to the man that he is actually calling for the genocide of transphobic people, because she was saying that you are now denying that transphobic people exist.
The left will do that a lot. They'll say words are violence. And then they're trying and I saw this, I could show you the posting on Facebook. This woman was saying, all these people were posting about gay marriage, and she was posting to a largely Christian page, right? Most of the people are on this page are Christian. Mm-hmm. She's calling them names, saying they're so effed up. And then I could respond, I said, well, aren't you kind of being judgmental? She goes, how can you read judgment into that? I went, you just called everybody who doesn't agree with you effed up. You don't see a problem with this. And it was ridiculous. I have to show you, though. It's not comical. Yeah, okay. I can imagine. And they want to be the standard. They want their personal worldview to become the standard for everybody else.
Yeah.
And if you don't, they label you. I mean, you can't. So you want people to defy their own experience and embrace yours.
Yeah.
And I like to beg this question: what is such a compelling reason that I see you, how you're reacting now, would compel me to want to follow you?
John, if we can raise that question there with everything they're doing on the left, we would in fact have a sane country. We don't have a sane country right now. You cannot have a sane country and then have the response to that debate between Josh Hawley. You'd be surprised. Go read the reaction to it. I went and read some of the articles on that debate. I want to see what are people saying about it. What are they saying about it in the Huffington Post? What is CNN saying about it? I want to find out what are the ones watching and not really involved in the conversation. You can call it a debate if you want to. I can't debate whether or not a man can get pregnant. I can't debate that. That issue is not debatable. Now,
Can a pig fly? Not yet. I mean, that's where porcine phobic, because we deny pigs can fly. I mean,
I'm not going to debate with this professor about whether or not a man can get pregnant. I want to debate whether or not she's a law professor. I want to debate whether or not she understands this document.
Doesn't seem to embrace or have the real grasp on biology. So,
I mean, her field is she claims to be a law professor, and they talk about her being an expert on race and gender issues, and therefore being an expert that you're not supposed to challenge them. And Josh Hawley, Senator Hawley from Missouri, was challenging her, and of course that's not to be allowed because down your nose again. What degree does he have?
He probably has a law degree.
It
right?
sounded like he had more than she had. John, you can't make those kind of comments and be normal.
I have friends who are like not Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings. I mean, aficionados could tell you every version of the story, and they have it in different languages. But guess what? Out of that realm of dealing with the Lords of the Rings the universe, which is just literary pursuit, their knowledge base is probably not germane to other things being brought out in the world. I mean, it's just really isolated and insulated within a certain context. So, I mean, but this woman is like gauging La La Land thinking. I mean, that's it.
I could not believe what I was hearing. I mean, this person's a professor of law. Okay, does she with this professor of law? Okay, let's get away from the area you're not trained in and go into the area where you are trained. Would you agree with the claim that there is nothing specified in the Constitution? You're a law professor. Is there anything specified in the Constitution as to what the impeachment itself must be based upon? Is that found in Article 1, Section 2? And I'm talking about Section 2 because impeachment takes place in the House, and Article 1, Section 2 sets up the House. So then, since it's quantified in Article 1, Section 2, does Article 1, Section 2, where impeachment takes place in the House, where it says in Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5, the House shall choose its Speaker and other officers and shall have the sole power of impeachment. It says that in Article 1, Section 2, because it sets up the House. Does it also then say in Article 1, Section 2, that the impeachment must be based upon treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors? No, it does not. Now, Professor of Berkeley, law professor at Berkeley, does it say it in Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6 of the Constitution, which sets out and says that, and listen to this very carefully, I'm going to read this to you as well. I'll read it to you, let you know that I'm not just out here emoting. But in Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6, it says that the Senate shall have the sole power to try impeachment. I'll read it because I don't want you to think this is being made up. Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6. Okay, so I'll find it in both books. It's in bigger print here. I'll eat the pages. It's not found in Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6. And listen to this very carefully here. I'll read it. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. Now, that's what it says. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. It does not say, and you heard it here first, and the first time this has ever been said in the history of the country. It does not say the Senate shall have the sole, that the Senate shall try all impeachments. The difference is that the language sets up location. The Senate shall have the sole power to try impeachments, not the Supreme Court. It's a location question, but it does not command the impeachment to be referred to the Senate. And if I'm wrong in saying that, show it to me in the document. You see, they don't understand this document. If they understood it, they would not have made the mistake they made in 1797 with William Blount. William Blount was a senator from Tennessee, and they impeached William Blount. Blount had interfered with the affairs of the government, taking a side against the government, and they thought that was in fact an egregious offense and we're going to be impeached for it. Well, here's the problem that they had. You cannot impeach a member of the House and a member of the Senate. They impeached William Blount. Blount was impeached in the House of Representatives, but you cannot impeach a member of the House and the Senate. And I'm going to show you why that's also true in the document. Alan Dershowitz, you listen very carefully, because I'm dealing with your confusion here too. And Lawrence Tribe of Harvard University, you're confused about this as well, no doubt, because you don't understand that the impeachment does not have to be referred to the Senate for trial, that you don't understand the impeachment process, and so you need to listen also. You cannot impeach a member of the House and Senate. And I'm gonna read something to you in the document here to show you that is it's going to be in Article 1, Section 6, Clause 2. Listen to this very carefully. Listen very carefully to this part here. No senator or representative shall, during the time for which he was elected, be appointed to any civil office under the authority of the United States. Now, you can read that until the cows come home and never see that there's a word missing in that statement, that if it was understood why that word is not there, they would have known then they cannot impeach a member of the Senate and the House. Because if this word were there, then it would mean that you could impeach a member of the House and Senate, but that there's a word missing here. And let me tell you what, it's not missing. What it is that they didn't put it in there because the intention was that the senators and the members of the House would not be impeached. But let me tell you what the word is. I'll read it again and give you what the word is not. The word is not there. They didn't put it there because they understood what they were doing in that convention. These were scholars in that convention. These were intellectuals in that convention. And there are no intellectuals in the Congress today. None. The senators and representatives shall receive, I'm sorry, I should read Article 1, Section 6, Clause 2. I read Clause 1. Section 2 says this: no senator or representative shall, during the time in which he was elected, be appointed to any civil office under the authority of the United States. It does not say any other office. It says civil office under the authority of the United States. And why doesn't it say any other? Because it does not include the senators and the members of the House as civil officers of the United States. Now, here's this part. In Article 2, Section 4, and I'll read that to you if you need me to read it, but I'll quote it and don't have to read it. The president, vice president, and all civil officers, listen to that word very carefully, all civil officers of the United States civil officers of the United States. Now, did I read Article 1, Section 6, Clause 2, and I read this right here? No senator or representative shall, during the time for which he was elected, be appointed to any civil office under the authority of the United States. Not any other office of the United States, but any office of the United States, which is to show you that they are not civil officers of the United States. Now, did I say here that they're not civil officers? I didn't say that. I said they're not civil officers of the United States. So what are they civil officers of? Well, the federal system says then that they are civil officers of the states in which they are elected. And the impeachment only refers to the civil officers of the United States. That's why it says in Article 2, that's why it says in Article 2, Section 4, the president, the vice president, and all civil officers of the United States, not of other states, of the United States, shall be removed from office upon impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. It is not an impeachment clause, it's a removal clause. Not found in Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5, which sets up the impeachment process, and it sets it up in the House because it starts there. But in the trial part, then that's in Article 2, and it's in Article 2 because Article 2 sets up the executive branch of government. And why is it found there? Why did the framers put it there? Why did those brilliant intellectuals in Philadelphia, the first intellectuals this country has produced, and so far the last intellectuals it's produced? There have been none produced since. And I'll say this also, and that is that you can forget this idea of all these listing of these great presidents. You've only had one great president. One. You've had 47 presidents now. Well, okay, if you include Biden. I don't really count Biden because Biden didn't win that election. Something great happened today, by the way, and that was Fauci has announced he's resigning. This election was won by COVID. Biden did not get 80 million votes. We have a usurper in the White House. The 46th president was elected to a second term in 2020. And that's where the insurrection was. And January the 6th, you are nothing other than a distraction from the insurrection that's already occurred, because the insurrection occurred November the 3rd. When they overturned the will of the American people who voted Donald Trump into a second term. That's what happened there. I looked at all the numbers. I looked at what occurred on the voting days. You don't have voting day anymore. You have voting weeks. And the intention of that is very clear. They don't intend to have honest elections in this country. If they intended that, then you would have the election on the day of the day of the election, unless you have people that have made an appeal to have a ballot sent out to them. I don't believe anybody should be denied the right to vote for your elected leaders. That's what the Republican form of government is all about, which is guaranteed in Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. Every state is guaranteed by the document, not guaranteed by the action of the politicians, because there are no Republican forms of government in this country. It was potential that was there to be had. We never did achieve it, and now it's almost impossible to achieve because they've discarded the Constitution of the United States in this country. The Constitution is exactly what Judge Andrew Napolitano said. The Constitution is in exile now. We are in a post-constitutional America right now. In that document that they swear their allegiance to, there's not one person that put their hand in the Bible and swore to hold the Constitution that's in fact doing that. If that were the case, then Biden would be impeached. And they would not have made up the impeachment charge against Donald Trump. And can I say this about you getting mad? The January 6th hearing, nothing other than a continuation of trying to deny Donald Trump access to the White House because he knows he's not one of them, and they do not want him in there because he's going to go in there and change some furniture around in their house, which they now occupy, control, and own, and we don't own any of it. It's American people. It's all occupied and owned by the politicians in this country. And they weren't able to do what they wanted to do, which was to get him from out of office and keep him from running again through the impeachment process, where they intended to apply Article 1, Section 6, Article 1, Section 3, Clause 7, which is the part where it says that the punishment for conviction on impeachment charges of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors should not go beyond removal from office and a requirement the person cannot then hold another office under the federal government. You cannot prosecute under Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6, because Congress is a political body. And that is why I'm going to make this final statement here before I go off the air, and that is this. The hearings that are being held now by the House of Representatives in the January 6th committee, every one of those meetings they've had, they claim they're going to have the last one Thursday. Every meeting they've had is unconstitutional because in order to hold an investigatory hearing dating back to George Washington, I don't have enough time to discuss that part of it, but it goes back to George Washington. Every one of those hearings is unconstitutional because in order to do an investigatory hearing, it must have a legislative purpose. It cannot have the purpose of stopping Donald Trump, which is the purpose of these hearings. And that's why the focus is singly on Donald Trump. It's not on how to prevent another quote unquote insurrection, which didn't even occur on the 6th of January. It occurred on November the 3rd. That's why they're not talking about it. That was insurrection. It happened 2 months before January the 6th. They were responding to it by coming to Washington, demonstrating against what they had already done. Okay, I got to get out of here. Until next week, I want you to follow your dream. If you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.